Welcome to Branding the Experience. We discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Brought to you by Bator Training and Consulting and Break Ice Marketing.
Here are your hosts, Ken Bator of Bator Training and Consulting and Heather Dowell of Break Ice Marketing.
Let's move on to what I believe may be if you wanted to, in my mind, if you
Mhm.
wanted to say, what is the most important theoretical linchpin in your overall strategy and your overall marketing in
Mm.
planning, implementation, execution, to me, it's the vision statement.
Mhm.
To me, it's the where we're headed.
Mhm.
And I think that that's so important to brand, culture, and strategy. The vision to me, for marketing especially, yeah, it's one of those pieces that really needs to be at the forefront, even in that, that first little marketing plan paragraph synopsis
Right.
of where we're going and how are we going to get there. How important is vision to your marketing?
There needs to be time put into it that, you're creating a vision that makes sense for the company. You're not just creating a vision that sounds good and, it gets approved. It's, people don't know what it means. You got to make sure that your vision is clearly communicated to your staff and it makes sense. Because if it doesn't make sense to your team, it won't make sense and it will not be marketed well to your audience. And I think honestly, that's a common problem. Or what happens a lot of times is a company creates a vision. It's an old company, it's been around for a lot of years. Maybe its visions remain, for the last 25, 30 years. And it just kind of gets forgotten about. And it
Yeah.
just grows dust on it. And no one really knows what that vision is. Might be on the website, but no one
Mhm.
has it memorized. It doesn't make sense to anyone. And it's definitely not part of the brand.
Yeah.
And I think that the vision is important because it should be the backbone of the what drives the brand and what drives the culture. If you don't have, legs for a table to stand on, it's going to crumble, right?
Mhm.
So, or if you have like three legs, not four legs, you need all four legs. So I think these are the legs of the brand of the organization. And also too, the vision is kind of helps you stay on track. So, the look and feel perhaps can change on down the road. There might be things you have to evolve. We talked about that to stay relevant. You evolve as times evolve, but you want to make sure that your brand, the values and the core values and the characteristics of the brand supports the vision. And
Mhm.
that vision, if you keep going back to that vision, that helps you know, are we on the right track? Are we steering? Are we evolving in the right direction that supports the brand and the vision? Or are we evolving in a way that's going away from that and we're becoming someone else that people won't know?
Mhm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, that's a great point. We don't want to become something that people won't know. Yeah, I feel so strongly about vision and vision statements and not just the writing of them, but the implementation and execution of them. I would go so far to say that it's the essence of what I do and even the essence of this show, branding the experience. You can
Mhm.
toss any words out there, but does it match the experience? And to give a couple of positive examples, in it probably won't be liked by every person in the audience. It never is, but this is an old example. Back in the day, I think it was actually in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. Anheuser-Busch was the big dog in beer sales.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden this little company kept, like a little dog
Mhm.
biting at your ankles. This little company called Miller, I know we know all about it now,
Uh-huh.
kept taking away parts of their market share with their Miller Lite and some of their other branding. And Anheuser-Busch got ticked. And
Mhm.
so they came up with a vision that was just two words. It was kill Miller. And you know, we could argue about the use of kill and everything, but
Right,
and maybe it certainly wasn't a vision that could be a long-term one, because if
right,
you accomplished it, then you need a new vision.
right.
But the point is, and I forget the book that I read this in, the point that the author made, and I agree 100% with this, is it was crystal clear.
It was
It
short, memorable. You could not forget that one.
No, yeah, no, everybody knew what we were doing. You know, whether you were in an office, whether you were delivering in a truck, Anheuser-Busch, to, you know, your local Piggly Wiggly or Ralph's or
Mhm.
whatever it is, or you were working, you know, in the factory, whatever it was, people had a clear vision. This is what we're doing.
Right.
And so the importance of branding the experience, you know, having the employees understand it.
Mm,
And although, you know, maybe you got 3 weeks in you, maybe you don't, but the
mm,
thing that I like about Jim's book, Vision Maker, is it involves everybody.
right.
And generally, I like to do that with service standards, which we'll get to at a certain point. But hey, you know what? If you're of the mindset and have the time resources to be able to involve everybody, especially if you're kind of like a 10-person startup, I
Mm,
love that, because people support what they help to create.
right.
And one other example I'll give, and then I'll turn it back to you, Heather, is, you know, we mentioned the credit union industry a number of times. I remember this clear as day, probably about 25 years ago. You know, the alphas and the Gen Zs won't understand this, but
Mm,
at one time, you know, home banking, you know, now we take it for granted because we're on our
right.
phones, and you know, you know, we're sending somebody $11.50 for a slice of pizza that they bought at night. But, you know, back in the day where it was just all you had was ATMs and bank branches to get money, and you
Mhm,
couldn't move things as easily. You actually had to do this thing called write checks and
mhm.
put them in an envelope and put a stamp on it. But
Right.
yeah, but like 25 years ago, the whole trend was home banking, and the stuff was expensive back
Mhm,
then. And I remember doing strategic planning for a credit union that the board and the management were arguing about the large expense to build and roll out this big home banking system for their
mhm.
membership. And this went on for over a half an hour. And then finally the CEO, she got up and said, "Look, our vision," and I know I'm paraphrasing, but our vision is to be the most technologically advanced credit union in our market. So either we figure out a way to
Mhm.
pay for this and roll it out, or after we come back from this break, we're going to work on a new vision statement.
That was beautiful, and that's a great example. That is a perfect example right there. Yeah.
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 That's how you live and implement and execute on your
Right.
vision. And to
Right.
close the loop on that story, came back from break, they found the money for the home banking system.
Yeah. That that CEO was a smart CEO, whoever that was. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it was a woman.
Well, of course. I actually figured.
Yeah.
You may have used she, but still I figured, but
Yeah. It was kind of, I
but
probably didn't have to. It's probably understood. But anyhow, speaking of smart women, what do you think about that, Heather?
no, I think that is a beautiful example of how the vision drives not just the brand, but I mean what you're how you're evolving. I mean, they had to evolve by having a home banking system built. What would happen if they didn't? They probably would not be around today. We all know that. I mean, who, right? I mean,
Mhm.
who's going to go to a credit union or any financial institution that doesn't have, I mean, you might have, I know you have the old school members that's been, that's what they feel comfortable still going to branch writing checks. But what happened? You're not getting anyone new, and you're gonna just be a slowly, I hate to say it, dying credit union, and that credit union probably would not be around right now if they did not have home banking, or would not be around too much longer. So,
Yeah.
they understood the relevance, and they understood that that vision, I mean, that drove that decision.
This has been Branding the Experience. Learn more about Bator Training and Consulting and Break Ice Marketing at www.btcinc.net/marketing.